What's going on, guys? Coach Matrixx here from Performance Center. Today's lecture is titled Eccentric Training and Methodology Breakdown. So first, what is eccentric training? We're focusing on the muscle lengthening phase of movement. So for example, we're doing a back squat, when we bend the knees and bring the bar close to the floor. If we're doing a bench press, we're lowering the bar to our chest. If we're doing a chin-up, for example, we're bringing our body close to the floor, extending at the elbow. We'll typically call these negatives or slow velocity training. It's important for both structural adaptations, i.e. time under tension. It's also important for load absorption in sport, all right? So some things to know before we continue. Olympic lifts are certainly a part of the methodology, but again, that's a deeper rabbit hole to dive into in a later lecture. We also want to remember the intent of our training and how those adaptations will transfer. For example, to improve strength or power, we have to either A, move heavier loads or move faster, all right? We also have to remember that different muscle actions have different loading potentials. So for example, our eccentric potential is vastly greater than our concentric potential. It's going to be very important when talking about the different methodologies. Lastly, the methods used will always depend on our athlete's training age and their base level of strength. So the three methods we're going to talk about today, we have tempo, overload, and plyometric. So first talk about tempo. This is your traditional eccentric or negative work where the eccentric and concentric load are the same, all right? So some of the pros, they're great for teaching, right? With our novice athletes or beginner, if we're trying to teach movement pattern efficiently, traditional eccentric work is really efficient at helping them be more economic. It's also great for structural adaptations, right? The more time under tension leads to more muscle damage, which in turn lead to greater muscle growth and of course work capacity. Again, some of the cons now, understand that the load we use will never exceed our concentric abilities. As I mentioned in the previous slide, we know that different muscle actions have different loading potential. Our eccentric abilities are way greater than our concentric abilities. This will, of course, limit our transfer to our concentric abilities. All right, so again, we understand that while we can improve strength using tempo work, it's not necessarily because we're overloading a strength adaptation. We're simply increasing the structural change that pretty much sets the tone or improves the window for strength potential, all right? So this is where we can actually talk about overload. We'll use weight releasers or spotters assisted, typically more weight releasers using eccentric hooks for safety. Now, some of the pros, this is where we're able to load both the eccentric and concentric muscle actions optimally, all right? Using hooks, for example, if we have a 100 kilo 1RM back squat, we might put 80 kilos on the bar, 40 kilos on the hooks. Obviously, the total load is way greater than the athlete can lift concentrically. However, because the hooks will deload at the bottom, right, we're able to supermaximally load our eccentric potential and, of course, accommodate the concentric action as well. This will, of course, lead to greater strength and power transfer. Some of the cons, however, we must have a higher training age for safety purposes, right? If our athletes are not technically proficient, the risk reward is just not worth it. And of course, we want to establish some form of baseline level strength. It would be a 1.5 times body weight squat, whatever metric you decide to use, that's up to you in your setting. Last method we can talk about is plyometric, talking about load absorption or the switch from eccentric to concentric muscle action. Of course, by doing plyometrics, we have a greater emphasis on switching from eccentric to concentric action. However, we have to keep in mind that how we cue our exercise will alter the adaptation results. So for example, if we want to focus more on load absorption, we will have our athletes do altitude landings. Now, vice versa, if we want to focus on capitalizing on elastic energy, you might do a depth or hurdle hop type jump. We're trying to minimize ground contact time. Again, depending on the exercise you use and how you cue your athletes through it will, of course, dictate the adaptation result. So some examples here, the first video on the left, we have our athlete doing a tempo squat, right, 4-second negative. Notice that the eccentric and concentric load are the exact same, all right? Now we're gonna go on to overload, right, where we have our athlete doing a weighted hook squat, right? You'll notice that the hooks and bar load are way greater than the athlete can lift concentrically. However, the hooks release and the athlete proceeds to do their squat on the way up. Talking about plyometric now, we have a dumbbell drop box jump. Again, focusing on minimizing ground contact time and capitalizing on elastic energy potential. All right, so again, those examples for all three methodologies. That's it for this lecture, guys. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to email us, info@ironperformance.ca, or follow us on all social media platforms. Click the subscribe button to our YouTube channel to follow the latest and greatest in strength conditioning. Until next time, guys, take care.